to the show. Roger Lambert, returning guest, and a new guest, Israel Ruiz. How are you guys?
Good.
Pretty good today. Yeah, thanks.
I got a call from Roger to say I have to come across. So I drove across this morning, an hour and a bit, to come to the alchemy lab to find two alchemists hard at work. And because I thought we were going to have some problem with the recording, which we hopefully won't. So I was going to do it from home and then just do it remotely. However, I did come across because Roger said, Israel, that I have to come and meet you in person because this is something that's going to blow my mind. And I'm all about that in this show. So let's see. So we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? I'm completely unprepared.
Well, it's more fun when you're unprepared because then it can actually go in the direction that it needs to go in.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about what? We're going to talk about perfume. We're going to talk about
Animal alchemy.
Animal alchemy, which is it's the taboo in the alchemical community because, well, it's a taboo. Everyone's into the metals, into the philosopher's stone, into whatever, but animal alchemy is the one taboo that I think Israel is one of the only people on the planet or in the alchemical community that I've actually been in contact with that's actually doing this work. So that's why it's interesting, and that's why I said you better come through rain and snow and hail and sleet to actually meet the man. So,
well, I came through snow.
Yeah.
If it was 26 degrees, that's centigrade, so it was hot on Sunday, and now it's snowing. It's been snowing for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So we'll just take it back. So alchemy is, well, I guess it's an ancient practice. You guys know a lot more about it than I do. And generally speaking, it's done on metals and on vegetable matter, plants and what have you. Correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So the animal aspect of it is something that's, I guess, from my knowledge about it, which is zero, I can see why there's a taboo because you're using animal products, and I don't have the first idea what we're going to talk about right now, but I see there's some brightly colored bottles in front of me with various liquids in them, and I guess I'm going to be a little crash test dummy for today.
Yeah.
But first things we should probably, just for people who don't know, what is the goal of alchemy?
It's the elevator description of alchemy. If you were going up in an elevator and somebody said, what is alchemy? And you've only got one elevator ride to actually explain it to them. I think you need a few elevator rides, but what do you think, Israel?
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, touching on it. This is a dream. We call it reality. It's real because you're experiencing it. How you experience it, though, is your perspective, perception. So it's your opinion of what you're experiencing. And I think it was the Hindus that called it Maya, the illusion itself. And it's the only way that this one thing, God, creator, the divine, the alien in the simulation, can have the experience.
Car alarm outside. Yeah.
So how would, if I was one thing and the only thing, I'm going to create a way which I can experience myself as other. So I have to separate myself from myself. The procedure, I can't comprehend. My mind is limited to the illusion itself. Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Mercury, was the creator of alchemy, but he's also the universal mind, the universal spirit. So it's the thing that's having the experience or generating the experience for the soul, imagining the body reality. So for me, it makes sense that if I'm going to create something that I'm going to believe is other, even though I know that other is an illusion, it's a trick that I'm playing on myself, I'm going to create a Maya that's so good that I forget. And its job is to continue to have me forgetting so that I can continue to have the experience. Now we'll use time and space for a moment because the mind needs reference points. Just in case I stay trapped in the illusion that I created, nothing else, no one else. There has to be a failsafe, like a pull here in case of an emergency, or, and that's alchemy to me. It's the direct path to remembering.
All right, so we've gone straight into the deep end here on simulation theory, which is quite a hot topic right now. So I guess what we should maybe break down a little bit. Simulation theory is this theory that we are living in an illusion, a simulation, that nothing is actually real, but it's like a video game almost that we're playing, and we are the characters of the video game. And that's about how I understand it. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to mean, but I think that's pretty much it, right? Yeah.
I think there's synonyms, metaphors for the same thing.
Yeah.
And we are in the time of human history where we're not talking so much about magic anymore. So to me, for example, the physicists at CERN, some of them are, this is what the modern wizards and sorcerers and magicians look like. Particle physics. We're talking about reality here. In ancient times, we called it, magic, spirituality. But we've kind of gotten away from that. But there has to be, every new aeon, there has to be a new interpretation of the same thing. So now we use examples of technology as a reference point to allow the mind to comprehend. If you can
so do you think they're doing the same thing, like down at CERN, like what the magicians and sorcerers of old were doing or trying to do? Do you think that down at CERN they're actually trying to do exactly the same thing, but just using different tech?
Yeah. The thing, the mechanics itself is, we're going to repeat the same thing in a new form. We're always going to go to the same place. I have this theory that we have intelligence and we were created in the image of this higher intelligence. So if a higher intelligence creates an image intelligence of itself, we would call that artificial intelligence. I know it's like a taboo word. But here we are doing it again with machine. And, some people are freaked out about it. I think it's beautiful, the whole thing. It's just the divine, it's the divine experimenting with itself, pushing the boundaries because it can. And that's Hermes, the god of boundaries, the line itself. How much further can we push this? And there's always this fear that we're going to get lost, that it's going to overtake us. Maybe. It doesn't matter. This is like the conversation of Christ consciousness, right? There's no good and evil. If you really think about it, a lot of people are very disturbed with that conversation when I have it with them, because they say, well, no, look at the world. Like, right. This goes back to the perspective. If you haven't gotten to the point of realizing that it is what it is, then you're going to see duality. But once you get to a certain point in your development, maybe this lifetime, maybe 300 from now, you'll see it as, oh, it's perfect.
So you're going into the realms of reincarnation?
Sort of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we really have gone off the deep end early on. Well, okay, let's before we go full throttle into that stuff, let's go take it back a little bit. So I did a podcast with Roger 3 years ago now, almost 3 years ago, which is blink of an eye, isn't it?
Yep.
So thinking on that, if you want to go back and learn about or hear more about alchemy and how Roger got into it, it's a fascinating story. One of my favorite podcasts still to this day. And how did you get into it then?
I remembered it. I was experimenting with psychedelics.
I have a feeling that might be the case.
Right. Since I was a child, something was different. Something was off. And I needed to know what was going on. I grew up with a very religious background, and that was part of the thing that screwed me up even more, because I had events that happened to me as a child that should not happen to a child, so we think. And I needed to find a way to understand, am I being punished? Is this prison for my actions somewhere else? Or is there something more that I don't understand? And yeah, I've had some deep stuff, suicide and death experiences with myself and others as well. So there's a common thread, a pattern that I kept noticing. And by the time I was about to turn 30, Terrence McKenna, 5 grams of mushrooms in silent darkness, ego death, repeating it 4 or 5 times a week, and realizing,
no half measures.
I was going to say,
go in, right? Just the full set. And I realized, there's something going on. I don't know what. The psychedelic use started to show me I can escape this reality a little bit. It was fun. Fractals, patterns, orbs. And then nothing was happening. And then I started to get a little uncomfortable because, wait, I'm taking 5-6 grams. There should be something going on. And it was the most silence that I've ever experienced. And I had one more good experience with the mushrooms. And it spoke to me as a woman and said, hey, this is the end for us for now. You need to go on another adventure so that we can have new conversations, but you have to experience these first. I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. Okay. And later that evening, our pot dealer showed up, who we used to get mushrooms from. He's like, hey, you want some LSD? It's like, sure. Yeah, why not? And I was like, oh, that's the friend. Okay. All right. It was interesting with my partner at the time. We had a very powerful experience with just a couple of tabs. Chakra centers open up. I was cheating on her. She was cheating on me. The energy went up to the heart. Never seen anything more beautiful. And then it went up to the throat. So I experienced everything. Oh, wow. The sexual energy and everything. But by the time it got to the throat, it got serious. I have to tell you the truth. And then she told me the truth. And then I was mad. But why? Cool. That happened. Very interesting. And then he showed up the following week with this strip of paper that I've never seen before. And it was not perforated. And he said, yeah, this is from the guy that makes it, upstate New York. It's strong. I don't like it. I was like, I like strong. Okay, cool. So we planned it out in May of 2016. I took roughly 21 tabs. And we had already been playing around with this paper that would not dissolve.
You didn't have any scissors?
No, we did, but there was no perforation, and so we were already working with it, cutting little little squares, and it was a paper that was gray on top, black in the middle, gray on the bottom. It would not dissolve like paper LSD. It was so strong. I mean, one little hit, you would have it there for hours. I would take it out and just put it on my knee as I'm meditating, and then I would just pop it back in a couple hours later, and you can feel it in your DNA. This stuff is still seeping out of the paper. So we were messing around with it already. And then, that one night took 21. And to answer your question, to finally get to the point, I had an experience where I realized that I was speaking to my partner, but it wasn't the characters. It was telepathically, psychically, and we remembered each other like a sweet sorrow, because we forget each other. It's just part of the game. You can't come here with the information, or you won't play.
They wipe the hard drive before you enter the game.
Yeah. But in the game, you put information, crumb trails, little clues to remember. And we realized we hacked our way into this place. So we didn't come here the normal way. Yes, I was born in, through my mother's portal and stuff, but we snuck our way in here with other friends that, we know some of them already or remember them. But that night was the most profound experience that I've ever had, even today, to the date, because it wasn't something that I read about. It wasn't from a book or an organization or a spiritual anything. She would say to me, "We have to go now." There were things in the apartment that were trying to figure out, we'll call them agents. We were putting off frequencies, and we were here already for too long. And yeah. And I said, "No." And she says, "Don't do this right now. You do this every time. We have to go." And I started noticing that the cans of beans on the pantry, they were emitting a frequency, and the soul in her already knew. It's like, shit, I lost him. That's it. He's gone. And I started noticing the patterns of the letters. They were like spells. Pay attention to me. Come, interact with me.
You were seeing into the matrix.
Yeah. And these products, they use color combinations. Each letter is its own little entity. When you put them together to form a word, it becomes a new entity, kind of like a Voltron cartoon from the 80s, different parts to make this bigger robot. I was like, okay, cool. And I went deeper into it, and I started to destroy the apartment, screaming, "This is not real. This is not real." I was, I guess, attempting to break the fabric of the reality. And she said, "This is not how you do it." But there was a glitch between Israel and something else. And then, I got completely naked. There was a wild ritual. I started to walk around like a crab. I started to just pee everywhere and hissing like a snake. And so there was a lot of things. The body was the stage. And finally, after ripping cabinets, tossing futons, I mean, that's that strength that I was talking about. It's not mine. And I stood on top of the only thing that I didn't break, which was the table that was kind of drilled to the wall. I stood on top of it naked. I opened my arms. My body was the shape of a star. And it was a voice from beneath, like lower than the base chakra. And it started to bellow, "I am Hermes Trismegistus," over and over and over and over and over again. Until I collapsed. And then she was watching me, and there was something using symbols communicating. We were back at the banks of the Nile River. The pyramids were there in the background, not destroyed yet. They still had their beautiful, I think granite panels, white, golden top. And I came back. Hermes was fully here. And I remembered alchemy. So I didn't learn it. And it wasn't like a possession of something or this was the purest light that I've ever seen. And I remembered the truth of something. But I'm here pretending to be Israel, so I'm still integrating from 2016 now. What the fuck happened?
Yeah, well, 21 tabs of acid will do that to you.
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't vouch for that.
Yeah. I could only imagine.
Don't do it.
No.
Don't do it.
Now, again, a lot of people, this is going to be over a lot of people's heads. So Hermes Trismegistus is this mystical Mercury. We call him Mercury also. He's a mythical character, but allegedly, and he's also known as Thoth or Tahote, and he was apparently the boss of ancient Egypt, going back further than we probably would like to even think how far it goes back. But
Even to Atlantis, that's where they came from.
Well, that's I've done a podcast on that as well. We talked about that very subject. But the what I'm trying to say is he is the god who brought learning to the world. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So science, mathematics, astrology, all that kind of thing. Yeah. All right, just got that clear. This is my very limited knowledge of Hermes. I've got the I've read the Emerald tablets. Yeah, I've read those. They're pretty an interesting read. And yeah, no one knows how old they are either, right?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, I'm getting well out of my depth here, but let's carry on. So you remembered how to do alchemy. You haven't had any formal training.
No.
At all.
No.
And Roger, can you vouch for this? Fellow alchemist.
I mean, I couldn't deny it.
Yeah.
So
interesting. So, God. So alchemy, I mean, it still exists today. We use it. In fact, in Switzerland, there are quite a lot of. There's one in the town near halfway between here and where I live.
Oh, Martigny.
Yeah, it's called l'alchimiste. So
yeah, she does spagyric.
Yeah, spagyrics. So spagyrics.
She's a herbalist who does spagyric preparations.
Yeah,
and it's weird. It must be something to do with this general vicinity, because there's that lady who I've spoken to. I was going to go see her once, and she was going to come and see me, but it never worked out. Down in Martigny, it's when I was up in Ballasine where we did the last podcast. And then there's another alchemist, Tony Serron, who set up who's over near Tonon.
So not far away in France.
Not far away, no, about an hour and a half's drive to Orcier, which is in the mountains looking over the Lac Léman and
Lake Geneva.
Yeah, Lake Geneva, and well, it's in France as well.
Yeah.
So, and he set up. This is back in I don't know the exact date, but he started a full professional production of spagyric extracts from the plant realm, which exists today. They're in pharmacies all over France. It's called Elixalp. I'll put a shout out to them because Tony's now retiring slowly, and his son and daughter-in-law, Aurélie, have taken over the company. And so I work quite closely with them now and again. And so it's interesting how the alchemy is actually in this area. And just to go off on a little tangent, there's another alchemist here in Les Houches that Israel and I we're going to go see later on during Israel's stay. There's actually a history of alchemy in the Chamonix Valley, which I never knew about. So it's almost like I'm coming home to somewhere. It's one of these, I know I'm not allowed to use the word, but coincidence.
Mm-hmm. No such thing.
There's no such thing.
Yeah.
But it's actually, when you actually know the reason that you're actually going to use the word, it's in like the double negative kind of aspect that we can use it, but knowing that it is not the right word to use. But there is a very famous alchemist in France who died a while back called Roger Caro, who was part of the Philosophers of Nature here in France, and he allegedly has produced the stone by the three roads towards the stone, which there's the dry path, there's the wet path, and then there is also what we call the sacerdotal path, which is purely spiritual path, not talking about internal alchemy. We can go into internal and external alchemy, but through it's actually externalizing and creating the stone through direct connection with God. And he became friends with a guide, one of the Charlets, from the Charlet family. And he came to the valley with his wife, and he was one of the other things that he did extremely well. He was a radiesthesist or dowser, and he actually dowsed the location of a gold mine. And that's one of the things. Unfortunately, there's a bit too much snow because we were going to actually go up and see it. But it was in the press back in the 1950s, I think, and they went up, and it's in the high mountains, and they found gold, quite a lot of it, and also there is an antimony mine, which is a metal, or stibnite, which is the grey wolf, the black dragon, which in alchemy has. It's mythical. It's this metalloid that it's one of the journeys to the stone. Also, it makes amazing medicine. But apparently there is an old antimony mine here in the valley. And so there's a lot of alchemical history there that has been swept under the rug, but that's what usually happens.
Any mercury here?
Cinnabar? No. Well, not that I know. I mean, plenty of arsenic, but...
Well, when you talk about spagyrics, again, just for people's knowledge, I've got some. I bought some off of you last year. I still got some. And it's basically you, through your alchemical processes, this is the idiot's guide to spagyrics.
You fuck up the description, then we'll just correct
exactly.
you, don't we?
There we go. I'm doing it in layman's words. So you basically taken out the active ingredients in plants, the healing or whatever you want to use them for, and you distill them into a liquid that you can take in a dropper, and you put it under your tongue, leave it for a few seconds or whatever, and then you will get the benefit of that drug. And I should actually mention that up until relatively recently, 120 odd years ago, that this is how human beings used to heal themselves. This is what they used plant medicine before what we call allopathic medicine. So since like the turn of the 20th century, when we went to what the medicines we have today, the pills we get from our doctors and what have you. But before that, a lot of the medicines came from nature. Am I correct?
Correct. They all came from nature.
Yeah.
But they also came from, we tend to think nowadays that most medicines come from, let's say, the plant realm, where they are, the guys go down to the Amazon jungle, they find a plant, or they talk to the indigenous tribes down there, what have plants been used for, what do they heal? And then they will go, okay, well, that plant could be great for the big C word. And so what they'll do, they will then extract these compounds from the plant that they think are interesting. But because they can't patent a plant, what they do, they extract these compounds from the plant, then they will artificially synthesize them. And then once they've been synthesized, then they can put a patent on that synthesis, and then they sell them. But they are isolated compounds. This is how Big Pharma works.
Yeah.
This is Big Pharma. That's what they do. But back in the day, plants have been used since the dawn of time. But the person who made it popular for plants was a Swiss guy, Paracelsus, who back, I think it was in the 14th century, if I'm not amiss, he coined the phrase of what we call spagyrics, which is based on two Greek words, speo and agiros, two Greek words, which means to separate and to recombine. And the idea is that we take a plant and we separate its three principles. Everything in alchemy, looking at the world through an alchemical lens, is to see everything as three principles. So you can extract a plant. It's easier to talk about in the plant realm because it's easier to understand. Where when we say you extract the active ingredients, as you were saying, which is what we call the essential oil, which in alchemy we call the sulfur of the plant, which is the vehicle of its soul. It's the characteristic. It's what makes rosemary smell like rosemary. So when you smell rosemary essential oil, you know it's not mint. So that is its soul. It's its defining characteristic. And then you have every plant, if you ferment it, it creates one thing, ethanol. Well, methanol as well, but alcohol, let's say. It creates alcohol, and that is its spirit. It's not the spirit, but it's the vehicle that the spirit, the life force of the plant, is invested in. This spirit, this alcohol, and then the residue of the plant, its body, let's say, is we call the salt. But when we actually separate those, we would separate by steam distillation the essential oil or other methods, but we'll keep it simple. So we have our essential oil in a little bottle that we keep on one side, that we can purify it again if we wish. Then we ferment the plant and we'll create an alcohol. And that alcohol is its spirit, which we will rectify. So we'll make it stronger and stronger and stronger, concentrate it basically. And then the plant residue, or the mark, as we call it, what we do then, we will incinerate that. Then we will calcine that. Calcine comes from the word calc, which is to make white. So we basically burn this plant to an ash, and through continuous incineration or calcination, we'll turn that ash white. And then what we do is we lixiviate that ash, which is basically we pour on distilled water, and we pull out the water-soluble compounds, which are salts, which are basically 90-odd% potassium carbonate and some other trace minerals, etc. So what we have done, we've created a trinity, which is we have the body, or the salt, we have the spirit and the soul. So it's a bit like in certain religious things, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It's a trinity. So we've taken these out. So we have done the speo part, which is the spagyrics part, which is to separate. We've purified and then we recombine those. And to take it full circle, when we recombine these three elements, three part of the plant, we've got the essential oil, our sulfur, which is invariably acidic in nature. So it has a very low pH value. Okay. We have our spirit, or mercury, of the plant. Coming back to Mercury, the messenger of the gods, which is pure ethanol, is around 7.2, 7.3. So it's neutral. And then we have our salts, which are 90% potassium carbonate, which are extremely alkali in nature. So we've got polarities involved. And when we actually add all those back, we've got the acidic and the basic, and we put those back in this medium, which is neutral. So it's, let's say, a receptacle that can accept these two polarities. When we put them back, that's when the real magic of spagyrics actually starts, is because most people would, let's say, make a mother tincture. You put your rosemary in alcohol, and then you draw out the active ingredients, and that's what you would take. But the problem when you do that is your sulfur, which is your active ingredients, is very volatile in nature, and alcohol is very volatile in nature. So if you treat your kids with essential oils, great idea. Sore throat, oregano, perfect. Tastes like shit, but it's really good. But it doesn't last long in the body because it's broken down by the body's natural defenses, first pass digestion, because it is acidic in nature, because you've only got the neutral alcohol, you've just added acid to it. And so the body will see that as an attack on itself, so it will then break it down as fast as it can. So less of the active ingredient actually goes into your bloodstream and into the body. So, because they're very etheric in nature, are these two volatile ingredients. So we need to fix those, and this is what the salts do, which is the body. And so it fixes those. So when you actually take a spagyric, it lasts way longer in the body. And also, so coming back to what actually happens during the alchemical marriage, as we call it, when we put everything back together, is you don't just remix and you think, okay, that's cool, it's remixed. You have chemical reactions that take place, and which are extremely interesting because we say in alchemy, when we do a spagyric, we are exalting the plant. We're taking it to a higher harmonic, a different level. And it's actually chemically proven now. And this is why spagyrics are becoming more and more popular, because what actually happens during this alchemical marriage, when everything goes back into the alcohol, is you get certain processes. One of them is decarboxylation, which is certain molecules lose a carbon molecule. So decarboxylation, saponification, which is like making soap, and esterification. And what's special about those is that saponification will actually render non-water soluble fats, like your essential oil, it actually renders them water soluble. So when something's water soluble, you're 80% water. It makes them more bioavailable. So we're instantly taking medicinal compounds and making them more bioavailable. Also, the decarboxylation and the esterification is the alcohol is being affected by this process as well, these esters, okay? And it will create new esters, and it will create new salts, carboxylic salts and new esters. So you're actually using the plant itself to catalyze new compounds that were not in the plant itself in that form beforehand. So you've taken a plant which has got X amount of terpenes, phenols, esters, whatever in it, and you're actually making more of them, but with the plant itself. So this is why we say we've actually exalted the plant, is because we are creating novel compounds. So this is the higher harmonic of the plant. And what's even more interesting when we compare it to actual modern pharmacy is what we call prodrugs. Prodrugs nowadays are the definition of a prodrug, which has appeared in the last 10 years in the industry, is a neutral drug that's actually, it's neutral, but when you actually take it, it's broken down and used on demand by the endocrine system, etc. And it's a method of drug delivery. It's a method that we take things. Ibuprofen is a great example. You look at on the packet of ibuprofen, it will have carboxylic salts and or potassium salts and aminic acids, something like that written on it, which sounds a lot like a spagyric. But the fact is, it's not modern. Paracelsus fucking invented it back in the 14th century, for Christ's sake. And so this is why spagyrics is more popular now. And the other thing is because it's not isolated compounds we're talking about, it's the whole holistic plant that's involved. Because the problem with isolated compounds in medicine is that you get side effects. But God invented the universe and nature to be perfect. And so all the other compounds that are in this plant are actually buffering the active ingredients, calming them down or exacerbating them or compensating for them. And so when you take a whole plant, you get, or a spagyric, you get little or no side effects whatsoever. Plus, you can actually reduce the dosage because you get more bang for your buck. You're getting a larger full spectrum medicinal compounds that go directly, even past the blood-brain barrier for certain plants. Did I explain that all right?
I think so.
In Israel, let me just ask you.
Yeah.
Do you understand all that? That came from 21 tabs of acid. You got that information?
No.
So you don't know any of this?
No, I know this now.
Yeah.
The spagyric work is one aspect of the great work. And that's what was being shown to me. It wasn't lab processes that were being shown. It was all in symbols and the Philosopher's Stone, which I'd never heard of until that night, that it was already inside. And I've noticed that I've been doing laboratory alchemy for 6 years now. And there's people who have been doing it for 20 years, 30 years, and I'm doing things that they haven't done or they haven't figured out. Something special about me, it's that I'm not the operator, just the vehicle for the thing to be happening. So there's an expedited thing that's starting to happen. That's been happening with my work in the lab. And then there's the conversation of the animal work as well.
Oh, we're going to get to that.
Right, so I'm looking at a little bottle of red liquid.
Yeah.
And it's called Red Fox. Mm-hmm. Is this the one I'm going to take?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Tell me what it is.
All right. So
actually, let me take it first.
I'm just going to jump in here because what we're actually going to talk about now, or Israel's going to talk about now, is his speciality, is a part of alchemy that we said is taboo. There is people who do, let's say, animal alchemy, but on, let's say, the lesser range of animals, which is we could be using animal product, things like egg yolk, things like that to make the oil of egg. We can be using shells from shellfish or coral or animal byproducts, let's say, where here we're actually going into the full range of, careful, it's strong.
Go for it. Yeah, that's good.
This is going to fuck me up.
Go for
As
it.
much as you want it to. Strong, huh?
Oh, it's strong.
I'll just
Down the
say to the listeners that your host, Nicole, Mr. Kindness himself, has just popped a full vial of fox spagyric, and we'll be going into, I won't be, Israel will be going into the processes involved and the archetypes involved and what it all actually means. So, and it looks like I'm next.
Yeah.
You're next. Get it down the gullet. There you go.
Ooh, it tastes. It's got a funny taste. It kind of tastes like a fox smell.
Yeah, it tastes like a fox's arse.
Thanks, Roger. You're going to tell me now where it comes from.
Yeah.
And does it come from its arse?
Does it come from the what?
The backside of a fox.
No, it's a full fox.
All right. Okay. So
Head to tail.
So what? First off, what is it supposed to do? Is it a medicine?
It's a medicine.
It tastes really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's it for?
There are compounds in there. There are essential oils in there, from the blood, the organs, the meats, the bones. They're all different types of sulfurs or different types of essential oils. So when I isolate them, they all look different. They all smell different. And so it's the plant spagyric work, but instead of the fractal part that we call plant spagyrics, it's another it's another part of the fractal. So I'm doing everything that I do to the plants to these segments of the animal. They're going to work more because it's the animal realm. So you have the mineral metallic, which is the most fixed. And then you have the vegetable, which is right in the middle, kind of neutral. And then you have the animal realm, which is the most volatile.
And the closest to us.
So animals have wisdom. They have things to teach if you're paying attention. Every single story about, a fox, a rabbit, in mythologies, in fairy tales for children, there's always a lesson. That lesson comes from the wisdom that that animal has. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to work with it, it's going to show you. They can be a spirit guide. They could be an animal totem, which is a little more permanent. And yeah, they can show you where you're imbalanced, where you're understimulated or overstimulated, and it balances that out.
And how does it manifest? How do I know?
Oh, they're like psychospiritual. These are psychospiritual medicines.
Now you tell me.
Yeah.
No, not psychoactive. They could be, but psychospiritual medicines in the fact that I was always imagining this kind of work as from, let's say, the shamanic point of view, where the shaman becomes the eagle and he's and whatever. And apparently, it can manifest like that, but. In my recent experience, it was the red-tailed hawk, and apparently the red-tailed hawk in America, they fly extremely high, like 3 kilometers, 3 miles high. They go up to get the bird's eye view. And the night that I took this, I didn't have any kind of shamanic experience, as in a combining with the bird, the idea of feathers, that I was a bird or something like that. Is that the things that are happening at the moment in my life, nothing to do with let's say, well, yeah, they are to do with alchemy, but I was just given a different perspective, as if I was, instead of being, can't see the wood for the trees, I'm in there, I'm doing it. And I'm thinking, well, where should I go? Should I go left? Should I go right? What kind of decision should I make? This was actually, I was looking at my situation from so far away. And it was like, hold on, I am 3 miles high here. I am looking at this situation, and I could see it all playing out far away, far below me. And then I was thinking, well, it's obvious I need to make this kind of decision, because I was getting the bird's eye view. So it wasn't exactly a physical combining of me and a bird. I was just had a vision of what's happening in my life through the archetypical characteristics of a bird's eye view. That's what it gave me. And so I thought that was really cool, because it's very subtle. It wasn't, oh, I'm going on a shamanic journey. It was just that I got a different look of what was happening in my life.
So a new perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when did you get this vision? Was it in your sleep or your dreams? Or
Yeah, the sleep.
So tonight, am I going to get something?
Tonight, tomorrow, dreams. You might see a red fox on the road. Might be alive, might be dead. You might see, a child walk by with a little animated red fox on their shirt. Your sense of smell might pick up. You might start to pick up nuances on your wife, your kids, anything around you. Just think of the animal. Yeah.
And so how did you know that once you made this, did you then take it and then you had that, or did you already know what was going to happen once you made it?
Come on, tell us the story of how you met the fox. Because I think that explains a lot of how you are drawn to a work when you're not even looking for it.
Right. And that's how everything works for me. So I stopped seeking everything. The gifts just show up. Okay. So when I'm doing this in the lab, as within, so without, the changes are already happening in my life. We'll stick to the conversation of the red fox. It's showing up in my dreams. Symbolism, silently, never direct, always peripheral. So I know that it's for me when it's peripheral. Like, hey, pay attention, just don't look at it. But when I am done with the red fox and it's fully completed, I have about a liter. So I take 500 mils. I distill off the ethanol as much as possible so I don't get alcohol poisoning, but I drink all of it. I drink the whole thing. So what you just did was a little dropper. I'm talking about a very initiatory amount.
Pint of that.
Pint of fox.
Right. And where I drink this animal as an initiation, and I only do it the first time with the animal that I'm working with, that particular species, for the first time. Within seconds, the most intense sleep feeling that I get, and I immediately pass out, black, and immediately wake up. As soon as I wake up, my consciousness in Israel has now relocated itself in the consciousness of my theory is the nearest fox to me. And its consciousness is in my body. So we flip. Doesn't feel like a dream. Very conscious. And that's why it's the initiation. So I am conscious. Israel is kind of flickering in there, but I have a snout. I have this tiny little nose. I'm experiencing sensations that I can't with my limited human body. Whiskers, my sense of hearing, the way that the rods in my eyes are taking in light and breaking it apart like a prism is completely different from my eyes, my human eyes. The sense of smell, interesting how much more there is. All of a sudden I realize that my sense of smell, my sense of sight, hearing and feeling are not separate from each other. It's just one thing going on. We see everything 3-dimensionally. I'm seeing everything now 4th, 5th dimensionally. So there's more depth to what's going on with the experience. And it feels like I'm having this experience for a year, but it's only been a few hours. And then I wake up. I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but I wake up confused because now I have a human body again, and it all feels alien again. So as soon as I get comfortable as a fox, okay, that's enough. Back to it. And for, years, I'm still integrating every single animal that I've processed.
Can you tell us a story about how you met this particular fox?
Yeah. I was working for an alchemist in Taos, New Mexico. He's the one that introduced me to the animal work. There was a fox that lived on a property where we all worked. So I would feed it, I don't know what you call it here, rotisserie chicken. So you can buy a chicken that's already fully cooked at the market. So my idea was, I love animals a lot. I eat them. I'm grateful. But I really love animals. They're the only reason why we're even here talking because, anyway. So my idea was influenced by Snow White. I want to be the guy in the woods that has birds landing on my hand, my shoulder, the deers walking up to me, having conversations. So I thought, okay, cool. This is a perfect opportunity. I see it's Den. I see him every day. He always stops to stare at me. So I would sleep in a shirt for a few weeks every night. I would rip strips of it, wrap it around the rotisserie chicken, and bring it to the den and leave. And every few days, I would just do it again. My idea was it would associate my scent with food or reward, a treat, a gift. And that perhaps one day I would be walking and he would just walk up to me. So I kept dog treats in the car just in case he did. Right. I stopped working there. And one night, my fiance and I we took some MDMA. We're having a good time. And I started feeling something was about to happen. I felt that the music was too much. The dancing was too much. And I felt this voice say, hey, without words, like, hey, let's go for a drive. I'm like, are you sure? I'm rolling hard. I've got to see straight with one eye, but okay, let's do it. I know the voice, so I trust the voice, so I don't question it. Got in the car. It's almost the middle of the night. So I drove to the supermarket parking lot. So everything's closed, but I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there. Hey, let's keep driving. And I knew that out, away from the house. So I keep driving, go to another parking lot. I see the cops there. I'm like, hey, man, what are we doing here? Because, I know that I'm super dilated right now. And just silence. Okay, let's go home. Okay. So I'm driving home, and as soon as I'm passing where I used to work, I see this thing in the corner of my eye.
The peripheral vision.
Yeah, that's where the magic is, right? And I noticed that I thought it was a dog. I thought it was a coyote. I felt the bang right under my ass. So it wasn't in the front. It had run at my door and gone underneath. And I guess the exhaust or something hit it. So I just pulled on the emergency brake and went outside, just picked it up, put it on my lap, started racing home. And I looked at it, and immediately, my mind was fucked up. started profusely crying. So I started having flashbacks of me giving it the rotisserie chickens, but not from my perspective. I was in a tunnel watching this guy bring chicken, saying stuff that I don't understand, and walking away. And I kept seeing that over and over again. And then I came back. I just started yelling at it, like, what the, this is not what I wanted. This is not it. Why? Just like angry at it like this. And then I'm angry at myself. And so I make it home. My fiance's taking a bath, rolling, enjoying herself. I just
Little did she know.
Kick open the door. I'm just holding this fox that's dying. And the red fox is her spirit animal. We've talked about it. She gets out. What are you doing? What are we going to do? I don't know. Let's go to the lab, which is the garage outside. And I'm really sad. And so I'm protecting my sadness with anger. And I call Roger.
It's 3:00 in the morning here for me.
Yeah.
And just freaking out, crying. He's like, well, you need to hurry the fuck up and get to work. And call me later when you're done. So I look at my fiance, Christine, and I said, well, we're doing this together. And I had already done animal work, so I knew how to approach this by myself. The characters, Israel and Christine, we now sit in the back and watch the show. Put them on the table, put plastic underneath. I've got to work fast. I need to get that blood before it coagulates.
Before the spirit leaves.
Mm-hmm. So I've got very little time to get the initial part of the work done. So I make a upside down Y section over the chest. I reach my hand in there. I grab the heart. I pull it out. It's not that big. It's still pulsating. And I ate half of it. And I gave her the other half. And this is evidence that the characters are not there. They're just watching. Because she would have never done that. But she just ate it. And we did not cry. There was no emotion, understanding. So when you die, when anything dies, the pineal gland releases all of its DMT. That's how you dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does it all end up? At the heart. So every animal that I process, that's not an insect. I eat the heart as soon as it happens. So I don't have a full-blown DMT experience because the body has compounds that oxidize the DMT. But you feel something, especially when it's from an animal. And we just stared at each other as we're doing it. So I'm still chewing. It's a raw piece of meat, a muscle. And she's still chewing. And we're looking into each other completely, the layers and layers and layers of this thing. Understanding that this thing that we just did here is traversing through every other aspect of we're multidimensional beings.
It's a form of communion.
Yeah. And cool. We swallowed the last bit of it. And yeah, now comes the process of getting all the blood out, going through the circulatory system and squeezing everything out as much as possible, separating the meat from the bones, the organs, everything in its own jars. She's labeling things. I'm getting everything ready. And then the bones, I keep the pelts and the skull for myself. The pelts and feathers add a if you think that was rough, if I would have added the pelt, it would have just almost inedible. So yeah, and had to bring the fermentation tanks, get the fermentation going, and then we went to sleep. Woke up at my 3 o'clock in the morning to dreaming that there was a bunch of activity going on and that there was a fox in the house just rummaging for snacks. And I heard bang, bang, bang. And I wake up and all the fermentation containers had exploded all over the city and chunks of fox everywhere. It's a trickster. 3 a.m.
The people who are going to be listening to this, it's so good because Israel's talking and I'm watching Nicole, your Mr. Kindness, your congenial host. His eyes are popping out of his fucking head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so,
can you go into a bit about, we were talking the other night, you should develop this about how when we take an animal spagyric, we are having an experience of a fox, but it's actually a two-way street. Mm-hmm. You're actually giving the fox a human experience. Yeah. Can you go into that?
Before you do,
yeah.
But stick on that for a sec. That, what I just consumed, came from that particular red fox.
Yeah, so it's a fox, and it's the energetic of love.
Wow. Well, I was not expecting this today, Roger. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's why I said we're not going to do this on a video call.
Okay, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
No. What was the question? Oh, how it's, yeah. I don't know what the fox is experiencing through me because I'm me, it's it, so we switch. So it is an honor, not just for me, but for the fox. It's the only opportunity that an animal... So animals are group spirits and group souls. So every single fox, whether it's a silver fox, a black fox, all over the world, it's part of this collective that we call fox. Plants are the same way. The mushroom explained this to me, that when I would take these very high doses and I would disconnect from my physical, in my physical, the mushroom was experiencing reality as a human being. As me, in particular, the fox is experiencing its experience when I do the initiatory dose.
So it's like the collective unconsciousness of young, but this is on a whole different level because we're talking two-way streets into the animal realm.
Okay, I have to ask though, I mean, the universe is a very mysterious place, and I'm just scratching the surface. You've obviously gone deeper than I have, but I know it's a mysterious and marvelous place, which there's a lot of things that I've learned over the past few years, which I wouldn't necessarily say I've been seeking it, but I've been seeking it. You know, I want answers, like everyone. I want answers. I want to know what's going on here, right? Yeah. I think everyone's got that. I think certainly the people I know is what's the point of it all? What's the point of swapping or sharing consciousness with a different animal? What's the point in the grand scheme of things of that?
Experience.
That's purely it.
That's why we're here. When you get rid of all the stories, what was the actuating cause? What was the trigger, the motivation behind that cause? To have an experience. Why would I, so not Israel, the I, want to create the illusion of separation to see a mirror of itself that it can play with for the sake of experience?
So we're just here on Earth to experience, and that's it.
Infinitely.
And so what's the reason then? Why is it? Now we're going to get into the stuff I speak to my Roger, my spiritual advisor, as I call him, is it seems to me, and this is me as in Nicole speaking here, saying what's going on here. It seems to me that in a perfect world, that we'd all get along well. and the world would be a beautiful place. There'd be no pain and misery. Yeah, that seems that would be the perfect situation, that everyone lives in harmony. Yes, you're going to have pain. And yes, you're going to have misery because people are going to die or things are going to happen to you that that hurt you. Right. But the feeling I get, and I'm just throwing this out there because it's going to sound weird, but the feeling I get is that there is almost a deliberate, and I'm not saying who, because I don't know what it is, but there's we are being collectively, all of us right now, especially in the last 4 years, made to suffer.
Right.
And it's stressful, it's painful, it's suffering, and it seems to be intentional, because it's not just you or me or you, Roger. It's the whole world is being subject to this unnecessary pain. What happened 4 years ago today, pretty much, is when everything closed down and stuff. That sent me into a spiral, because I could not believe what was happening. I thought, I saw right through it. We were talked about this at the very start. So this is beyond crazy what's happening right now. And, I went into a bit of a downward spiral, and I think I'm still coming out of it, to be honest. But why would it, if we're here to experience life, why is it that we're experiencing life right now in such almost like a painful way?
I would say the pain is not happening to you from outside. It's just where you're at in your development. So you perceive it as, I'm suffering, I'm in pain, I'm depressed, I feel anxious, I feel low, and so on. So there's several facets to it. And for me personally, my life has been severe pain from a very young age. That's what was the catalytic reaction, one after another, that led to where I'm at right now. Part of why I wear all black. It's not for evil reasons or witchcraft or anything. The work that I do in the lab, I'm playing Undertaker. I'm destroying things, separating them. I feel the pain that they're experiencing at the molecular level, at the subatomic level, at the physical level, at the spiritual level, emotional level. And then the soul doesn't feel the pain. They choose me to take them to a higher place. I feel what they feel through their lenses and my own as well. If you don't eat shitty food, you won't know what good food is. If you don't lose people, you'll never learn how to appreciate. If you were born in a world of wealth, nurtured, protected from everything, you can never truly experience what is love. And that is part of love. The extreme polarities of the same thing. It's necessary. And maybe it's not for you to figure that out now. Maybe it's the next one. Because you're not really here right now. You're merely experiencing this moment. But there are infinite moments in this very moment right now that are happening outside of this one. And we're constantly switching through them. When you manifest $10,000, it doesn't come here. You move consciousness to a place where you have that 10 grand. That's why they say be careful what you wish for. Or at least what that means to me is be more specific, because you might get the 10 grand because you got in a car accident and so on. But you need to have these experiences, and I know they suck and I know it hurts. But there's something beautiful on the other side of this. But that's how you gain wisdom. And the more I suffer, it's putrefaction. It's what happens at the base of a rose bush. The more things defecate and die, the more the earth breaks these things down, the more it nourishes that rose bush, the more fragrant it is. I'm not talking about fertilizers that you can buy at the plant shop. That can, maybe boost it. That's not it, though. And that suffering is beautiful.
But why do you think it's happening? It happened to the entire planet.
Because we're perceiving it that way. I don't perceive that we're suffering.
No, but
if you look at it through I'll give you a different perspective from Israel's talking about the same thing, though. If we look at it, when you become an alchemist, let's say, okay, it's a big title. We call ourselves that, aren't we? Who cares, really? But if you look at everything through the alchemical lens, you put your alchemy glasses on, everything is alchemy. Everything. As we say, I mean, you're talking about the spagyrics, a plant spagyric, separating the three principles, an essential oil, a spirit, and the salt. Everything has that. Minerals, that we do mineral extracts from gemstones. We get an oil, we can get a spirit, we can get a salt. You can break everything down into these things. And if you look at the world today, what's happening, let's say, morally, politically, spiritually, is everything's playing out in our reality like that, is alchemical as well. So I think the fact that we're being an alchemical marriage, when we say we're going to put the purified plant salts and the purified sulfur into the mercury, the alcohol, to create the alchemical marriage, and that's played out everywhere. A man, the sulfur; a woman, the salt. They get married to create the alchemical child. They get married and have a baby. That is just alchemy playing itself out, and we're the actors of that. And if you look at the whole world, what's happening, where things are getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Lockdown, whatever you want to call it, maybe World War III just around the fucking corner, whatever. I think it's, or you can even talk about what's happening on the woke, the gender front, where things are being pushed. The polarity is being pushed further and further and further apart. So for the perfect alchemical marriage to take place, that's why we will purify the essential oil. We will redistill it. We get it to the pure. We push that polarity to its maximum, and then we'll purify the salts to push that polarity to the maximum. So what we're actually seeing in society today is actually just the pushing of polarity till it gets to a stage where it's probably going to pop. And that's when the alchemical marriage could maybe take place. People might perceive that as the second coming, or whatever. You can call it whatever you like. But I think it's almost, we can step onto some really dangerous ground, is where, let's look at diversity, inclusion, whatever, this transgenderism, where men are calling themselves women now, and they're saying, well, you have to respect that. I think it's actually a natural process, is because I think what's happening in society today is, talking about transgenderism, is that we are trying to create the alchemical marriage before its time. The alchemical marriage is like, we'll say, the hermaphrodite, the divine hermaphrodite, which is pretty close. A man calling himself a woman it's like we're touching on that. And I think why it's creating a lot of conflict is because we're trying to create this alchemical marriage too soon. And so we have to go through these processes of what's happening, which is creating more anger, which is creating this, but it's actually pushing the polarities out. So I think it's actually a natural process that's happening. It's not something that's perverted. We, at a certain level, guys going to female prisons and raping women. No, it's not cool. But I think it's part of a natural process that we have to go through. So polarities are purifying, they're being pushed further and further apart to create more opposite. So everyone has an opinion. Everyone is heated up. And it's at that point, let's say, it could be the second coming, whatever, that boom, the alchemical marriage can take place. And we do create the perfect being, or whatever, the divine hermaphrodite, that we will find catharsis from what we're all experiencing. So I don't think what we're experiencing is actually super negative. I think it's just part of the natural process.
Right.
Yeah. So you're basic. If I can try and, alchemize that in my brain, you're saying that this is a necessary stage for humans to go through as part of the evolution.
It's a natural stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I meant necessary.
Yeah. So for the mind, the character, it's necessary, but it's just what happens. Does it have to hurt? It doesn't actually hurt. You're just experiencing it that way.
Perceiving it as
perceiving
pain.
it as that. So, for example, it's a rites of passage. There are tribes in Africa that the mother sits down with her child on her lap, 6-year-old child. It's a baby. It's innocent. There's a strong bond between the mother and the child. It needs to be severed. This is the beginning of the process of self-individuation through Jungian psychoanalytics. The medicine man or the shaman will grab a piece of glass, a razor blade, and do scarification. So cut these patterns of crocodile skin on the child's ribs. The mother sits there and holds her child as it screams. You are severing this thing that needs to happen. When the child now goes into puberty, we're going to send it with a little bit of dried meat, a little water, and send it out into the bush. Don't come back until you're ready. The father may have a difficult time, but it's easier for the father to watch its son or daughter be separated out. It's in our nature to, it's in the mother's nature to hold. It's in the father's nature to push out. The mother needs to be present for that. She needs to also let go of this idea and the energetic behind it. Does it have to be painful? It just is painful because you're holding on to something with dear life, an idea.
Every true initiation, every true enlightenment is through suffering. When you're born, it's suffering for the mother and the child. And people who say that they've had an enlightenment, that I've been in illumination or whatever, where they were sitting on a beach in Ibiza, listening to fucking music and saying, "Oh, all my chakras were opening. I could feel the kundalini coming up, and I've had this spiritual awakening. It was fantastic." And instantly, I know that it is total bullshit, because true,
which is okay.
Yeah, but true spiritual rites of passage, you think you are going to die. Sometimes you die and come back. They are painful. They are horrible. In fact, I would not wish spiritual enlightenment on anyone, because it's not a nice fucking process. And that's when you know it's really happening, because it's cutting away the dead flesh. It could be literally. You could be vomiting everything. You could have high temperature. I mean, I ended up in hospital, and the doctors said, "We can't find anything wrong with you." I was taken to the hospital. I was running like 41.5 fever. I was completely constipated, full of shit, which most people actually do describe it like that sometimes, but I can take it. And I was trembling. I've got this huge temperature. I've got aches. My brain's, it's horrible. And then the doctors are going, "Well, we've run all the tests and there's nothing wrong with you." I knew there was nothing wrong with me, but I was carted off to hospital. Mm-hmm. And that's when you know that something is really happening. It's never easy.
Yeah. I often, we go through the same thing in life. The most rewarding things are generally the most painful. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that. That makes a lot of sense. Geez. This has been a fun chat so far. I want to go back to almost the beginning when you were talking, Israel, about when you took your insane dose of acid. I mean, I've heard some stories about people taking 2 or 3, and I thought that was crazy, but 21. But you said you met Hermes, Thoth.
Yeah, just Hermes Trismegistus.
Yeah. Okay, so, but he has the various names, right? Or
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the one that showed up.
Okay, so-
yeah. So I didn't meet him. How do I explain this?
But information was passed.
Right.
And are you able to tell us, because this is very fascinating for me, are you able to tell us a little bit about what kind of information was passed to you? Any secrets?
I mean, it wouldn't be anything for the world, but
No?
it was personal. But not for Israel. At that moment, I laid Israel to rest as an idea and adopted him as my child. That my soul, my operator, had a name, and it's Hermes Trismegistus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's yeah.
I wonder if the mics picked that up. That was Roger's stomach rumbling, by the way.
It is think of a video game. You are at the helm of the control and you have your little character on the screen. Israel is the character on the screen. Hermes is the one at the helm.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're all the same.
That's one part of it. The other part is that I'm the only one here, but not Israel. I'm experiencing myself.
But what do you reckon the point is of us our souls experiencing living on Earth? What do you reckon is the ultimate point?
How many ways can you cook a chicken?
A lot.
Right.
But,
And then if you meet other people who cook, if you start to travel the world, it begins to influence the way that you see food. So your experience of making chicken starts to change more and more and more. Same thing with perfume. You can give me 7 essential oils by ratio, and maybe omitting 1, so I do 6 or just 3. I can make countless numbers of perfumes.
Yeah. So for you've had this experience. You've been what you call the ego death. So you're not Israel. You're
Right.
I guess it's your soul or whatever you want to call it. Your pilot.
Right.
So if we break it down, there's us. So the ego, what we are, me and you guys. Well, maybe not you, but me and him, or maybe not you either. Maybe I'm the only one who is. You've got the typical human hopes and dreams and pains and sorrows and happy times and good times and what have you. But that is one aspect to us.
Right.
So that's what we call us, the ego. Then you have your soul,
Right.
which is
It has an agenda.
yeah. What's the agenda?
Everyone's different.
And is it because what I've been reading quite a few. Well, one book about Eastern Indian philosophy, basically. Well, it comes from India.
Yeah.
About how we're supposed to try and live better lives in our various incarnations to try and achieve a higher spiritual level, a higher spiritual state. Is that what everyone's trying to achieve?
I don't see it that way.
No. Okay. All right.
There's an element of surrender that you'll get pushed to. And to touch real quick on the conversation of suffering, every experience that I ever had, the only way I can see myself through it or past it was to finally let go, to surrender, to give up, which meant I had to trust. In what? I got my mind needs something, some sort of story. It's got to be malleable. So I trusted in this thing that I understood but did not know. And the trust allowed me to have what's called faith. Once I established my relationship with faith, now I have trust. Now I see the love. all that required me to surrender. Once I've surrendered, then a new thing shows up. Oh, you think you've got it? Okay, cool. Here's another one.
Another challenge.
Another experience. Oh, yeah, I can accept that because it's all divine. Okay. How about this thing that's going on in the world? I resist it. The moment I experience resistance, I know, oh, this is another layer of the initiation. I have to let go. I choose to let go of everything that I believe into the unknown. And I'm constantly being liberated from the chains of it's like the devil card in the tarot deck. They have shackles, but they're not locked.
Uh-huh.
It's a game. It's a trick. The whole thing is a trick. The whole thing is a game. And it's hilarious. If you can let go of all your personal opinions, it's the cosmic joke. So then it's followed by a cosmic giggle, which we've been experiencing recently. And then it leads to the understanding that I'm the butt of the joke.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel you're just so absurd. You're just ridiculous. You're a ridiculous human being. What are you doing?
It's like watching a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I can't judge. I don't judge a child for the decisions that it makes or how it feels. I mean, I see a kid crying and I always laugh. I'm watching this little mind developing itself, this innocent, pure light transforming itself so that it can become part of the game. It's hilarious. I'm watching a little AI computer become sentient more and more and more.
Yep.
So it's becoming more and more separated from the truth. I think it's hilarious.
You've got to lose yourself to find yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. There's one other thing this has been on my mind a lot lately. So I guess this is obviously, I'm not going to say coincidence, but the reason I'm here, or one of the reasons I'm here, is intuition. I've been talking a lot about that lately, and how to tap into it. Now, I've listened to it before, but I listened to it last week. It was a Manly P. Hall lecture, that guy, and it was How to Develop Your Intuition, I think it was called. And look, I'd like to read a broad scope of things, but it seems to resonate. Maybe the guy seems to speak a lot of sense. I know he was a 33-degree Freemason.
No. He was an honorary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was just given to him.
Ah, right.
Right. Because when you know a lot, certain organizations show up.
Like that text that just arrived this morning.
Can I mention what that was?
Yeah.
So you got a text as I were chatting this morning with an invite to join the Illuminati,
Yeah.
which I thought was quite funny. Anyway, and it's about So you clearly know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Manly Hall. But from what I gathered from it was that in order to tap into your intuition, you have to live a simpler life. You have to become a good person. And by that, he means, giving back, being, I guess I'm going to use the term Christianity, be a good Christian, because that's something I grew up in.
All you're talking about is freeing up disk space so you can actually receive the information.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, simple life, lead a good life, not too cluttered. Basically, you're taking away all the clutter so you can actually hear it. It's like, you're at home and the kids have got the loud music on. And I'm speaking to Delphine or Israel, and it's like, can you turn the fucking music down? I can't hear what he's saying. That's leading a simple life. You're getting away the clutter.
Yeah. And all these little perspectives are part of that noise. It's just static. So you can't develop intuition. It's there. So what I'm really doing is getting out of the way, stopping the projection. If I accept that I know nothing, then I'm open to the stream of data that's constantly being given, whether, it'll manifest through the gut feeling, synchronicities. That's the big one, right? Oh, I keep seeing 333, 1111. It's like, what's going on? It's like, shh. I like to point it out, like, 1111. That's it. I have friends that are like, oh, what do you think it means? Like, I don't think it means.
I think sometimes when I'm driving on the autoroute, let's say, and they've got the illuminated signs above the autoroute and say, there's been an accident or something like that, and they've got the time there. And more often than not, I'll be driving along, it'll be, 1313 or 1111 as I'm driving under the sign. And I take that as a message to me from the universe that whatever I'm going to do on this journey, I'm in the right place at the right time. Yeah. That means, that's where you should be. I've
had that so much this last week. It's ridiculous. Every time I look at my phone or look at my watch or on the oven at home, it's the series of numbers. Yeah. It's crazy how the things work out. It's I'm just kind of conscious of the time here. I don't know whether we want to. I think we'll maybe try and do another one then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, Israel, thank you so much, man. That was madness. Let's see how this Red Fox thing turns out.
Yeah.
Roger, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to see you.
It's always nice to sit down with people who see things from a completely different perspective than most of us do. And for me, it's like, you're saying things that I already know deep down inside, but just life gets in the way.
You just forgot.
No, you get in the way.
I get in the way. Yeah, I get in the way of myself all the time.
Yeah.
I'm my own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
And your best friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't forget that. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.